Yes.
Good. Good. Yeah.
Actually, you know, recently got the last one. Because there is people playing like we compose something for people. Yeah, that's right. If you are used to more classical music, sometimes it doesn't make sense to you, but in the end, they are only the yeah. So, if you look around, you can know each way what your story was that you used so that the law is too perfect. Right now, for you, you have ending on that. Yes. When you react, you react. When you get caught, another that, you are caught. Then probably your reaction will be further resistance. I think that it's a way to do it.
What's your number?
Yeah, well, I mean, It's like a joking, but I don't know why they're asking.
Yeah, I was making fun of me. People reporting the morning
But right now we can control it.
Okay. It's okay.
Yo. No, Ali was saying hi. Hey. Yes. A friend of mine was saying, like, but if they players, the way they overuse the afford. But you start motivating over when you feel that accept basic home. You sign your soul away. She's coming. Yeah. You want to do this?
Take that.
You have it outside. You have it.
I have. Yeah.
Are you talking about is he wearing some doubling or tape? Yeah. On side. Side. Hey. But you're talking about
That was one.
No, sir.
Now I have to think about this. You should just do it when I'm not paying attention.
Okay. You're a winner.
So I've already
Ai, eu não sei.
I mean,
Yes. I was thinking I had done a week. I need to one the main one. I don't have one for there's two main I went the main one.
Yes, sir.
Last
that's the one. That's the one we're asking.
yeah.
When does it
Yeah, so what's like your general activity every time?
If you have school night, event of the party, like if you take a photo and video, 1,000.
What about this? Like individual pictures, let's say.
Like I said,
Yeah, like
if you want to come like in the studio, take it like So, that one is from 200 up. 2 hours, 3 hours.
What about you come to canvas?
Yeah, you are able to upgrade the picture that I was set up. So we have mobile screens that are set up before the light of our house. It depends on your house. Everything depends. Check it out.
That's kind of fun.
You can say, okay, I'm going to pay you $300. When I say, what's the other? You say it's New York. I got to drive 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
So you have to check everything.
You said the metro.
Huh? I took the metro. I still have to stay in the metro for 4 hours. I got to pay that. Or 3 hours.
Yeah.
They charge you for time. That was because this thing, after you shoot, you have to end. Charge you 2 times. The shooting time, 4 hours calculated on the shooting time. They don't know that after we go down, we have to do the process. It's still on clock, right?
But nowadays,
That's why I've been avoiding it's very busy, but also practicing counting.
So we're going to do a little exercise. So can you tell us what it's about, what we are doing here today, sir?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Hamza Yassin. I'm a member of the Nubian community. The purpose of this function is to launch the Odyssey of the Nubi in East Africa, a book written by General Moses Ali, the current Deputy Prime Minister of Uganda and Member of Parliament for Adjumani. The purpose of this book generally highlights the history of the Nubian people in East Africa. As you know, most people in East Africa are not aware of who the Nubian people are. And so it's important that the General publish this book, which highlights the historical perspective of who the Nubian people are, what they have gone through, where they came from, where they live. And so this gives a proper narrative of the fact that the Nubians are part of the East African community, which is lost on most people. You know, people have a reductive view on people that they don't have an understanding for. So the book highlights that fact, and that's what we're here for, to launch this book and also celebrate a bit of our Nubian culture and to show that we've contributed immensely to Uganda as a country. Also, I think additionally also to share a portrait of one of our grandfathers who was also an ambassador of the US, of Uganda to the US.
Yes.
And so that's the purpose of this book.
Thank you so much. And we are here at the Uganda Embassy in the DC area. And as you say, can you summarize who is Nubi population to us for people who don't know you guys?
So the Nubi people, I would say the Nubi people of East Africa, a collection of African tribes that migrated from Sudan into East Africa before most of the East African countries got their independence.
Yes.
And so these communities were, some of them were mixed up within the local communities in East Africa. I'll give an example of Uganda. You find that most Nubians settled in West Nile. We have in Nebi, in Arua district, in Gulu district, in Soroti, in Bale, I would say Fort Porto, in Tebe, and the largest community is based in Bombo.
Yeah.
And so these are who the Nubians are. So they assimilated, they came into Uganda in the early 1800s.
Yes.
And they settled, they have a distinct culture, they have a distinct language from most of the communities that they settled amongst. So that's what makes their culture unique. And I would say most of the population, it ranges, give or take, around 50 to 70,000 people in Uganda.
All right, thank you so much. Can you give me 2 to 5 different traditional dance that Nubi people do?
So I would say the Nubians have a dance called Doluka, and most of the dance, I would say most of the dance you would hear being played at weddings.
Yeah.
And so it's mostly Doluka, and that's the major way you will see the culture. And of course, like the dress code, where women generally dress very colorfully, and that's it.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You want to say something? You want to? You ready?
Say something.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, thank you. Can you introduce yourself and also tell us a little bit about this event?
Well, my name is Sisto Ochanda Andama. I come from West Nile.
Yeah.
Moses Ali is a big icon for the West Nile people, let alone Uganda. We're here as a group of West Nileans to support and push, propagate his book, and let also the world get to know about who the Nubians are and who we as the people of West Nile are.
All right, thank you so much. You can find somebody come. As we are not starting yet, you can bring some guests. They can talk. How you doing, sir?
I'm okay. How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you.
So we are here to sign the book, and you
Yes.
are one of the special guests. So can you tell us what are your expectations here this afternoon?
Well, thank you very much again for giving me the opportunity to comment. The expectation is obviously that the whole purpose of this launch is to introduce the book,
Yes.
and to encourage readership and follow up of the discussions and debates and issues that are raised in the book. So we hope that people will get away from here with an inspiration, not only to read the book, but also to continue with the discussion and hopefully also research some of these issues.
All right. Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you.
Are you ready now? How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. You'll be working hard since this afternoon. So here we are. In a few minutes, we're going to start this event. Can you introduce yourself and also tell us what are your expectations for this special event, and what do you bring in to make this event a successful event today?
Thank you. My name is Ismail Ali. And I'm a Nubi community member. I'm based in the Washington area. So the book is a big step in the right direction for us as a community to create awareness for our issues in Uganda and outside Uganda. So this is a good opportunity provided to us by the embassy, and
I want you to
we are
stop
happy that
after I
we did kind of represent.
Thank you so much. Oh, right.
So what am I
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah, just start right there.
Basically, the main thing, the connections.
All right.
All right. So, what's your name?
My name is Morgan Chui, and I'm the chartered affairs for the Embassy of South Sudan.
Oh, wow. Thank you for coming here. So, you are here today. You are one of the special invite for the signing books. What are your expectations here tonight?
My expectation is that history has always been written for us, and I believe South Sudan is the birthplace of the movement.
Yeah.
It has eased from South Sudan, or Sudan as it was called, has been all the way to settle in Kenya. This is a story of our colonization, but also the communities that we have made. So we are proud to come here and
All right. Thank you for coming. We will get your impression after the event. Thanks. Abdul? Who's Abdul? Yeah. Okay.
This one is This is Mama. Naruga chenyodio.
Yeah. Two chairs, right?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, there was
Fernando, greetings. How are you? Good to see you. I am Dr. Sally James. I'm based in Uganda. Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Sorry.
You have not finished. We are also
Finally.
They didn't give you the official
You have not finished, but I will if I say.
Officially, never met officially, but I saw on the targets, right? But yes,
Very good.
that's it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good there. I'm going to be moving.
Connect and then things. Yeah, things
Passport is yeah, but I was so busy when I came around this yes, many services. It depends on one of my friends, my collaborators saying,
I'm sure you have not forgotten me. That's
No, I have not forgotten you. I thought you forgot me. Oh, of course I have to. No way, I will miss this. This is my colleague, Mary, who's coming Ministry of Justice. Yeah, thank you. It's very good.
How was just can
Thank you. I'll give you my card also. I don't know if I gave it to you last time. Yes, let me give it to you. Yeah. No, it's fine. You can get it. So you don't forget. Yeah. About what? Not forgetting. See, that's amazing, right? So, yeah. We have
Anyone for water?
I visited already. He was planning to come here. That's silly.
Anyone for water?
How about someone?
I showed you.
Very good. Please do.
Good afternoon. My name is Hamza Yassin. I would like to thank you all for taking this time to come for the book launch, The Odyssey of the Nubi, written by General Moses Ali. We will try to have a compressed program. We'll have the national anthem. Then Dr. Wani will say something, give a preview of the book. We'll have Pascal who will have a review of the book. And we have one of our former, I think one of our former ambassadors here, who was in the 70s, will present the portrait of the ambassador. Then after that, the ambassador will say something as our host. Then I think before the ambassador, we have the South Sudanese charity fair. So we wish that they say something. Then that's it. I hope that works out for the day. So let's all get up and sing the Ugandan national Oh, Uganda,
we lay our future in thy hands. United, free for liberty, together we always stand.
Thank you. Thank you. You can all have a seat. All right. Thank you. As you all know, like I said, this is a launch for the Odyssey of the Nubi, written by General Moses Ali, and we have Dr. Ibrahim Wani will say something about the book, and then after that, Pascal will have a review of the book, and then we'll go on from there. Dr. Wani, thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Hamza, for the introduction. As he said, my name is Ibrahim Wani. I think I'm designated to do this role more because of my age and longevity here than anything else. I don't know what else I can bring from the point of view of substance. But first of all, I'd like to thank you very much, Ambassador, for hosting us here, you and your colleagues. I've lived in the area for 45 plus years, and it is not very usual that people hang out in the embassy. This is not yours, it's a tradition that goes back a long way. In fact, as I was waiting out here, talking to a few of the people here, quite a few said, this is the first time we're in the embassy. We've passed by it. So we want to thank you very much for hosting, but thank you also for opening the door and getting people here. I hope that this is the beginning of a trend, because there are very many of us here in the area, and those who live outside, many of us long for home, and this is where home should be. And I think it is a good practice that we periodically get a chance to come and visit our home, and connect to the home. I also want to thank you because I think this is a sort of, I use the word fringe, but maybe in a very ill-advised manner. It's a small marginal group, and for you to welcome them to the embassy, I think says a lot about inclusivity in the country. One of the themes in the book is indeed very much about this topic. The subject, the topic of a community that is small, considered marginal, misunderstood, and so on. So I think in that context, for you to open the doors of the embassy and you and your colleagues to get us here and to launch the book in the embassy is a very significant event, and we thank you very much for that. I also, of course, would like to thank the colleagues organizing this for putting this together, and for the invitation. The book was launched officially last September by General Moses Ali at his home in Adjumani. I was privileged to be there for the occasion, and he did make a very significant statement at the time about the book, and I think it's befitting that we continue to celebrate him and congratulate him for writing the book. He did mention in the book that he considers this a beginning. He has raised a lot of issues that warrant further research and thinking, and for us to deliberate on. And I think it is in that context that I would like to center my remarks. And I like to focus on a number of issues that he raises in the book that put in a historical context, but that I also hope will inspire us to continue to research and engage in public policy debate on issues that not only have historical significance, but have a bearing on us in Uganda today. The first issue is that of identity. Who are the Nubian? The Nubis. Nubian is the English connotation, but who are the Nubis? You've probably heard of the group. You see some of the artifacts here. You've seen the dress code. There is a language called Nubi or Nubian, but who are they? The book focuses primarily on that, and General Moses Ali traces the history and the origin of the group from the beginning, beginning with the Turkish-Egyptian adventure into Africa, the reference to what he calls slave soldiers at the time, and as they moved down the course of the Nile, getting people sometimes as slaves and in some cases as indentured servants to join a group that swelled from Egypt all the way down through what is South Sudan today into the northern part of Uganda, and along the way absorbing more and more people. There's a side story here about the slavery element of it, and of course forced encampment, including in my own family, a great-grandfather who was captured as part of that group and Islamized. So from Moses Ali traces that history as the origin of the Nubis, who are in Uganda in various towns, almost all of the urban areas, from Arua to Gulu, Lira, Masindi, Fort Portal, Soroti, and so on, because Bombo is primarily called the home of the Nubis now in Uganda. So I think that history is very interesting. It's one that is, I think, of interest for all of us to try to track and to try to understand. But in this regard, there are a number of very interesting questions that I think for those who are interested in further inquiry and research, I would like to present to you for consideration. One is just, who is a Nubi? Because yes, there's that historical origin, but I'm not sure how many people out there can still trace their ancestry directly to the Nuba from Egypt, for example, or Northern Sudan, or to the Ngowalas in the Kordofan area of Sudan. Because along the way, almost all of the ethnic groups along the River Nile were in one form or another incorporated into this group that is today called the Nubi. Are the Nubis a tribe? Are they a social club? Evidently not a tribe, because when you talk about a tribe, what comes to mind? We're thinking about some common ancestry. We're thinking about a territory. The Nubians don't have either one of those. They can't trace their history to Labongo and Gidir as the Achwalis do from a common ancestry. They don't have a territory. They're scattered all over the country. So what exactly are they? Is being a Nubi a subjective thing? I choose to be a Nubi and therefore I am? Or are there objective criteria that one has to meet in order to become or to be regarded as a Nubi? Is this something that you can opt out of at any time when you want to? Do you become a Nubi simply because you wear a kanzu and you have a torbush and you're a Muslim? These are all very, very interesting questions that I think for those who are so inclined would be of interest to pursue further. Related to that is the question of the legal aspect of the definition of the Nubis, the constitutional dimension. Of course, Moses Ali points out in the book that that question was resolved in 1995, when in the third schedule of the Constitution, the Nubis are recognized as among the, what is the number now, 65 or more? Indigenous communities.
Around
65. The Nubis are organized there, unlike in Kenya where it is not. So from a legal standpoint, that issue is settled. However, when you dig deeper into the socio-political dynamics in the country, it's very much a debate that is alive. I think in Uganda, maybe like most African countries, there's a tension in our socio-political dynamics about identity. We struggle between, on the one hand, globalism, being globalized citizens. We are Americans, we come here, live a few years, become American citizens, or we move to any other part of the world, and other people come into Uganda, and therefore citizenship is global in that sense. At the same time, also regional, because in Africa, we're moving very much towards an African nationality, if you will, African citizenship, or for that matter, Eastern Africa. At the same time, the tribal dimension is very strong. We're constantly in tension, pulling each other back and forth. On the one hand, being global, and on the other, that tribal element. I was in Kampala recently, and went to a police station to get a new SIM card, because you are required to get a police form. So I walked in there, and the police officer gives me this form, and one of the questions there is, what is your tribe? I said, but why do we need to find out? Why do you need my tribe for purposes of issuing getting authorization to get a SIM card? When in fact, it is, in my view, a totally irrelevant kind of question. We also have this debate about land that is taking place now, especially with the so-called Balalos in northern Uganda, with the Acholis insisting that land is communally owned. What's the implication of that? What community are we talking about? The community, of course, is tribe, and if you're not an Acholi, you can't therefore, does that mean we cannot acquire land and own land in Acholi land? And what does that mean for Uganda as a whole? Now, the implication of those kinds of questions are kind of profound, I think, for the Nubians, of interest in, because if the trend that we're heading into is one that looks at identity from the point of view of a tribe associated with a territory, then you can see the challenge that imposes for a community like the Nubians one. And incidentally, there are those who argue that in fact, the Nubis represent the trend of the future. An amalgamated community that draws in people from all kinds of places, a lot of ethnic groups, where ethnicity is not the key function. It is other things that define and identify this group. That if you look at the modern society, a modern African country, you go into a town like Kampala now, there are a lot of people there who are increasingly not sure who they are when you ask. I always tell my East African colleagues that for a Ugandan, when you ask the question, where are you from? I know that you're not asking me where is my home. You're asking me about my tribe. But in other places, that is not the way people look at that question, where are you from? They tend to think more of the town in which I'm born or where my home is currently located. So that's another set of issues that I think is of quite a great deal of interest and significance that the book draws on. And then, as a third element, there's the question of the role of the Nubis. From the history that I briefly touched on earlier, there's this identification with the colonizers. They are the people who who came in with the British, initially with the Egyptians and the Turks. They were the soldiers who made the occupation of that part of Africa possible. Subsequently, they played a very significant role in resolving disputes and determining leadership between the Uganda and Bunyoro, for example, when there were tensions going on, or there were religious tensions at different points in the country. They also played a significant role in opening up towns all over the country. A town like Gulu, for example, when the British decided that they were going to establish a provincial headquarters in Gulu, it is the Nubis who were brought in to provide security and make it possible for that town to be established. Now, from one's point of view, that's a very positive, nice history to think about. But from another point of view, it has also become a significant point of stigmatization because of this association with the use of force, with conquest, with occupation, and so on. And I think some people would argue that to date, the Nubians still suffer from that association with regard to their history. And I think a deeper, more comprehensive, inclusive narrative would be an important one to present. And incidentally, also, of course, the Amin period made this worse, because in most people's minds, Amin and the atrocities associated with Amin at that time were enabled by the Nubis. And as a result, not only does the Nubian community, I think, still continue to be touched on and stigmatized by that, but there have also been questions where people's properties were taken, bank accounts were frozen, simply because they are Nubis. They were deemed to have been a part of that association with an Amin regime. And I think I'm just raising this here to say one needs to get back into very much a better understanding and a different narrative about what the role of the Nubis has been in Uganda and in East Africa more generally. I touched on the issue of stigma, And I think for most Nubis, that is very much an issue that they've had to deal with, that there is the stigmatization, marginalization, sometimes the perception that you are misunderstood. An interesting question there is, why does that happen? I mean, one could argue that in a multi-ethnic society like Uganda, that is bound to happen. Because from my standpoint as a student of history, one of the things that the British did in Uganda and in Africa more generally was that they made us mutually contemptuous of each other. They had stereotypes about different groups that represented different narratives that led to a dissension, a certain level of contempt actually of each other. North to south, for example, was a major issue. So from that standpoint, the Nubis are not different in that regard. But I think there's a perception that they tended to suffer perhaps double jeopardy in that sense. The last issue I wanted to talk about was the question of the resilience of the Nubis. If you think about it, you have this group that is sort of amorphous. It's almost like the Swahilis. You start by grouping and joining from different places as the journey moves along. Then eventually they settled into different towns across Uganda. I was born and grew up in Gulu. So there were 2 or 3 Nubi communities around that town. And I think in some respect it is remarkable that 100+ years later, the community still exists and remains strong across the country. It is interesting as to why that happens. I have a couple of friends who have written books, articles actually, arguing that that is one of the disadvantages, one of the negative things about the Nubis, because they seek to stand apart from each other, from the rest of the communities, through their dress, through their cuisine, by being together. Of course, the mosque is an organizing area where the Nubis tend to congregate. And so they bring the discrimination unto themselves by that kind of distinction, by staying apart. But whatever one thinks of that argument, I think one of the phenomena that one sees here is that of a minority, marginalized group that is struggling very much to continue to retain and maintain its identity. I remember when I started school just before Uganda's independence, I went to primary 1 in 1959. We had a very interesting tension in our family and the community of Nubis generally in Gulu, because at that time, almost all schools in the area were run by the churches. The Catholic Church had schools and the Church Missionary Society. And going to school meant that you had to be steeped in Christianity. Yeah? We went to Mass first thing in the morning. I went to a Catholic school for primary 1. You go to class, there's the rosary, the cross with Jesus, and you say prayers. And that terrified the Nubis. Say, now what is going to happen to our children? If they go out to that kind of environment, clearly they're going to be Christianized and we will lose them. And so their solution at the time, some refused to send their children to school. But for some of us, those of us who continued, you were then given an overdose of religion. So we would go to early in the morning at 5 a.m. as you go for the Subuhi prayers, you are in the mosque. You would read the Quran for 1 or 2 hours, then you go to school. You come back at 1 or 4 p.m. straight again to the mosque until 7 or 8 p.m. That's their way of trying very much to diffuse the impact of what was going through. Today, of course, I imagine that the school system is very different in the country and that you no longer have that sort of church-oriented. But the challenges remain. The challenges come from social media, from globalization, from a lot of movements and so on. So the question then is, what is the future of the Nubis? Do they want to retain that separate, concrete identity? Do they want to begin to blend a little more, as some people have argued? And if you want to maintain the identity as Nubis, how do you do so in an area where even from the point of view of population and geography, unlike 50, 60 years ago where you had communities where you lived and you could literally create a virtual fence around, and you live within that community, engaging in your practices, in your religion, and so on. Today, that is not possible because the society has changed so dramatically. So how does one retain that resilience in that kind of environment? So I just want to leave those as sort of research questions and challenges, and would like to really conclude with 3 or so messages that I get from the book and that I would like to share with you. Message number 1 is about knowledge. This is a very, very important venture. We Ugandans are not very good at writing, in fact, not even at reading. There's a saying out there that if you want to hide information from a Ugandan, put it in a book, because they will not go and find it. I don't want to glorify that and say it is true or not, but the point I wanted to make here is that knowledge is extremely important, and Moses Ali has done us a great service by putting this in writing. And so I would encourage you to read it, because if you're not knowledgeable, and unfortunately that seems to be the global trend, you really can't engage in an informed debate. And so we end up in a lot of meaninglessness and sometimes even diatribes and misdirection, simply because we're not well informed. I think knowing particularly history is extremely important. The second message is about telling your own story. Some activists in this country at one point used to say, look at the subject history. It says his story. This is the story of the other person. They write about you, but they're writing it from their point of view. I studied history in school, and my only exposure to African history was the civilization of Africa by the British. Didn't talk about me, my origin, my people, and what have you. It started discussing history from the Second World War and just around that period, how the British helped us to civilize along and become join the global community. So it's very important that we tell our own story, and I would encourage you, of course encouraging me, I haven't done that, to write, put down something, share your perspective. Your story is important, let it be known. And finally, be engaged. Moses Ali is able to write this book and played a critical role in having in the Constitution of Uganda the acknowledgement, recognition of the Nubis, because he's engaged. For the last over 50 years, he has been a part of Ugandan politics at the highest level. And through that, he has been able to play a very, very important role, not just in dealing with community issues, but also more globally. And I think there's an enduring lesson that one takes from that, is that we need to all be engaged in our own little ways here and there. So I thank you very much.
Pascal?
Did I talk too long?
Well, thank you, the MC, Hamza, and I observe the full protocol that has already been established. I am Pascal Patsandebo, the full name. Yeah, a student of the University of Maryland, College Park, a graduate student. So I had the opportunity and the privilege or honor to review this book, although under some pressure and rather quickly. And I would like to make a few remarks. And if you will hear some common things that I say in relation to what Dr. Wani already mentioned, it's because we're reading from the same script. It was an honor for me because it's an identification that I got to have with one of the illustrious sons of West Nile. I think I would say by now he should be the most decorated. That is the retired General Moses Ali, who has, as he has already mentioned, been fully engaged in Ugandan affairs. And for us from West Nile, he stands as an icon that we look to. So when I review his book, I feel really honored. And I think that honor has been reflected in terms of his standing in the government and also the awards that he has got recently. But for this book, I would like to point a few things that I feel perhaps give part of the message, not really fully, because the time is not adequate. But it tells the story of the community, but it also records history of the community from an insider's perspective, which we need to appreciate, just like Dr. Awani has mentioned. But I quote here the fact that it is the story that has been misjudged for a long time. And I quote the Honorable Justice Bart Katurabe, who has made a preface to the book by saying the Nubi community has not been very well understood in Uganda. Often, rather, one often hears misconceptions about this community to the extent that there are people in this country who do not know that the Nubi are a Ugandan ethnic group in the Constitution of Uganda. Maybe that's where I can end that quote. And I think that misconception is not misplaced, because if you go, even for me as a young boy, I think I had the misconception. Mine was to equate the Nubi with Islam. When I was growing up in West Nile, that was the kind of understanding which had to clear over time. So I believe it is still held around there. And then the next thing is the emphasis of this book on the question of citizenship. We know that citizenship bestows some rights on people that non-citizens sometimes don't get fully wherever you go. If you're a citizen, you get to get the highest honor in your own country. But that was something which this community was denied for over 100 years, I would say, before it was officially recognized as a community as part of Uganda in the 1995 Constitution. And then there has been the element of that association, the negative association, which made them be branded as collaborators of the British empire building scheme, because of the role they played as soldiers during that time, right from the time when the Imperial British East Africa Company was beginning to lay the foundation of Uganda's colonial history. After the soldiers were taken over, you remember, if you go to the details, you'll find they were abandoned somewhere, then Lugard picks them from this West Nile region, brings them to central Uganda, and starts using them. Maybe that is just a tip to instigate you to buy and read the book. So the point is to say they played an important role during this process, which became a brand for them to be associated with the British. But the question we may ask ourselves is, having been in that situation where they were already recruited into a fighting force, and this was perhaps one of the effective things they could do, whether they had a choice to make or it was something that we all would fall into, because we know of the history of a number of other resistors in Uganda who still ended up being colonized. So that is the point to say we may not have to stick to the idea of that stigmatization. But then the question this book raises is about how the citizenship issue eluded the Nubi for about 100 years. And that is a question which we try to answer, or the book tries to answer, but when we want to give answers to this question, then it becomes an involving question. An involving question for the Nubi themselves, who are now officially recognized part of the Ugandan community, but also for the rest of the Ugandans to see how do we assimilate and involve people who come to us. I have a question which I raised at the end when we're looking at that context of how do we begin to open up and assimilate people. One other thing we learned from the Nubi story is the fact of how religion became a bond of building a community from this multifaceted, plural group of people that were picked from different parts of either Sudan or from especially West Nile, who became part of the Nubi community. Religion became a strong bond. The question we may ask ourselves is, can we learn from this and try to see how we have to develop commonalities that become stronger binding factors than the ethno-nationalism that we try to play about as part of our country's history. Then the other question of the book, which I want to highlight, is the fact of the hope that it places. After all these years, I've quoted. It's more like my own estimation. I've quoted 100 years where the issue of citizenship kind of eluded them, but at the end of it, there was this hope in terms of being officially recognized as a community. So this book gives that story. And when we look at it from that perspective, it also tells us, based on what Doctor said about resilience, that sometimes it becomes an important aspect to consider, that not all hope is lost, that you may go under some tribulations, but then at the end of it all, hope is realized. Now, one of the final story lines that I would like to highlight in this book is the fact of the responsibility of building the states or the nations that we have inherited from our colonial masters. Here, I want to be a bit general, although I might want to emphasize it from a Ugandan perspective. Yes, we have sometimes also a storyline of talking about how colonialism perhaps had its own evils in trying to bring us together and creating artificial boundaries. For example, my community was divided between the West Nile community and the part in the Democratic Republic of Congo, just to give my own story a bit. But the point is, can we learn from what we have inherited to take responsibility and build these countries and the nations that we have inherited? Because the story of the Nubi actually has that element which we need to keep in mind. Instead of having to stigmatize them based on their association as this colonial project, we learn to build a nation together. They have a role to play, they contribute to this nation building. The rest of us from different parts of Uganda and associated with different ethnicities learn to build this nation together, and in that way we learn something from this story that we can all contribute towards nation building, calling ourselves as citizens of the same nation. And that is a story which I again go back to quote from the Honorable Justice Bart Katrabe, which emphasizes the element of the justice that we can afford to each other as members of the same nation. Maybe I would like to commend finally by saying the story of this book would also be associated with the story of an elder who would like to, before going on the long journey, bequeath to the progeny an element of the history. And it remains written from a perspective of an insider, and from this writing we learn something about what we need to inherit and protect as a heritage. So for particularly the progeny of the Nubi, that story is something that you must pick up, and as Dr. Wani emphasized earlier, develop further, because this is not a story that has just ended, it is just the beginning of it. Then the book challenges us on a few things. I put here two challenges. One is that particularly to the Nubi community, after this step which the General has explained in the book in terms of recognition, what responsibility lies ahead as a community to develop further, and also as part of the Ugandan nation to contribute towards that nation building. It is that challenge which you need to take up. And for the rest of the country, it is also a story which challenges us as Ugandans, because similar to the history of the Nubi who came and who have been kept like on the fringes of the Ugandan society for this long, we have situations in which we have mass migration in the country in different forms. But here, maybe I highlight the refugee situation. And one of the solutions to the refugee problem, as we may know, is the idea of integration into the host community. Are we going to continue keeping some of these newcomers on the sidelines before we recognize them? Thank you.
Thank you, Pascal. Thank you, Dr. Mani. Continuing on that theme, I think the first time we came and visited Ambassador Robbie, we were in this room, myself and my uncle, Dr. Lasso. And then we were looking around and we couldn't see the picture of one of my grandfather and Dr. Lasso's uncle. Then we brought it up to the ambassador, and you were gracious enough to tell us when we get the picture and we have an event, we should bring it. And so, with that theme, I would like to introduce Maria. Maria is the granddaughter of Ambassador Mustafa Ramadan. She will say something, give a brief biography, and will officially hand over the portrait to the ambassador.
Okay. Mustafa Ramadan, born in 1937 in Bombo, Uganda, embarked on a multifaceted journey that left a lasting impact on his community. After receiving his early childhood at Imbeji Junior School and Mayakasuda School, he pursued further studies in Chambako College, earning a qualification. Later, attended Cairo University, where he obtained a bachelor's degree in economics, honing his intellect and skills along the way. Ramadan's career trajectory initially led him into the field of education, where he served as a teacher. However, his passion for serving his community drove him towards politics, leading him to join the Kabaka Yeka party. Within the political arena, he's tirelessly advocated for the rights and representation of the Nubian community, serving as a representative in Uganda, Kiko. Additionally, he held the esteemed position of Secretary of Lynch Marketing Board, further demonstrating his commitment to public service. In 1971, Ramadan assumed the pivotal role of Uganda ambassador to the United States of America, displaying his adaptiveness in navigating international relations. Following his diplomatic tenure, he was appointed the Ugandan Minister of Cooperatives and Marketing from 1972 to 1979. In this capacity, he utilized his expertise to implement and advance economic initiatives aimed at fostering growth and development within Uganda. Beyond his official capacity, Ramadan's influence extended deeply into the community development. He played a pivotal role in establishing the Nakatonia Islamic community, that emerged as a beacon of hope and progress for many. Through this community, he spearheaded various initiatives ranging from education to healthcare, leaving an indelible mark on the Nubian community in Uganda and beyond. In 2007, Ramadan's journey ended, but his legacy endures. His contribution to education, politics, and community development continued to shape Uganda, serving as a testament to his unwavering dedication to the betterment of his homeland. Mustafa Ramadan's life serves as an inspiration, reminding us of the profound impact of one individual can have on the course of history.
For those who may not know us, this is my sister, Zaituna Mustafa, and Mahmoud Mustafa, the last one, and that's my brother, Mansour. On behalf of the family, let me appreciate the ambassador and the embassy for this big gesture. We go a long way, in motivating the young ones in the family and to Nubians in general. As you see, also, this one is me for another day. I'm also the state representative of BLU in Maryland. Yes, we have a launch for the Southeast region.
That's for another day. Right
Yes,
now,
next Saturday. So let me take this opportunity to hand over this nice, what's it?
Young lady, it's like as though you're speed reading. So can you just go back to that sentence or the paragraph where he became the ambassador here, so we get the dates and.
In 1972, Ramadan assumed the pivotal role of Uganda ambassador to the United States of America, displaying the adaptiveness in navigating international relations. Following his diplomatic tenure, he was appointed the Ugandan Minister of Cooperative and Marketing from 1972 to 1979. In this capacity, he utilized his expertise to implement and advance economic initiatives aimed at fostering growth and development in Uganda.
Thank you very much. Thank you for honoring your grandfather. And this gentleman mentioned about his story, but now we're able to incorporate that in her story. So this is part of your story. So thank you for your graciousness, and we received this with great honor because he was one of our ambassadors. So thank you very much. And I'm also going to ask if that piece of paper can be attached to this. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very
much. Picture.
Actually, if you don't mind, we can scoot right there to where we take the official photo. So our father in good hands.
If you can get their contacts.
Thank you. Now I'd like to invite the South Sudan Charity Fair and go do Akulu.
Thank you.
I hope I did not butcher.
A little bit. A little bit. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will introduce myself. My name is Angong Don Achui, and I'm the Chargé d'Affaires for the Embassy of South Sudan. While I understand the focus of this book launch is about the Odyssey of the Nubi in Uganda, I came here because I think that this needs to be expanded a little bit more. Because when we left Sudan, I was only 5 years old, and that was because of the civil war. And we moved to Kenya. And I was exposed to the Nubi community in Kenya. And that was the welcoming community for us. But I didn't know the origin story. So, history, this book is a gem, because I have learned something that I would never have known if I didn't come for this, and if it was not recorded, because all our oral history our history has been oral. And it loses sometimes a lot of the details and things like that. But again, the Nubi people, for us, are our people. Their origin story is from Sudan, and their incorporation into the British Army, I had a personal connection to that. Two of my grandparents served in that, but they had a place to go back home to, okay? And they established our families, that is. One of my grandfathers is from my mother's side, and the other one is my in-law side. And yet they are the most influential people who established the communities that they settled in. when we come and talk about the Nubi, my misconception was always they came from the Nuba Mountains, right? But here I am being told that as long as they were following, the Nile, they were collecting. Your name is, your last name is Wani. That's from Equatoria region, right? I had Lasu somewhere here. That's Equatoria. So yes, this book speaks to your resilience and how you've adapted to the communities that you've settled in, despite the discrimination or the lack of acceptance. I still want to know the story of the Nubi in Nairobi, in Kenya, and the role they played in Kenya. And they're still struggling, I believe, to be recognized in Kenya as well. So I believe that this connection is long. So it's a very happy occasion for me to come. This was very important to me because, to me, you're my people. And these artificial boundaries that were created by the colonials are not important at the end of the day. And I feel that I'm part of my family because I also have origins from Equatoria as well, right? And these tribal elements, we are so intermixed. At the end of the day, can I really define who I am in terms of my origin story? And I think that your story speaks to a greater general, understanding of who we are as Africans. And so I want to say thank you so much for putting this into record. And I hope that it expands more to beyond this, because now I have more and more questions that I would like to learn, So I'm very happy to be here and to be part of this. So I appreciate your hospitality and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. So finally, I would like to again thank Ambassador Robbie for inviting us, opening the doors for the embassy to all of us. I hope we all had something to take back and some questions. Like you said, you have some questions. Those are good questions because as a Nubi in Uganda, I was always conflicted in school. This is my personal story because you're talking to people, but they don't know. People genuinely didn't know who a Nubi is. Unless like you take the initiative to sit down and tell someone who the Nubi are. Because even, we as Africans, of course, we learn stories from our grandparents, and sometimes the stories are not really that factual. And so, like, for someone to have this initiative and putting something down in a book, it's very helpful for the countries. As I went to South Sudan in 2006, so I lived in South Sudan for a very long time. I felt like I was home because I could speak the language. So I come to Uganda, I'm home. I go to Kenya, I feel at home because we have these communities that we can interact with. And some of us are very integrated. You go to Kenya, you can speak a bit of Swahili. You come to Uganda, you can speak a bit of Uganda here and there. So the East African community is a home for all of us, and it's important to feel welcome wherever we go. So for that, I'd like to invite the ambassador. I don't know whether it's invite because this is
How much time do I have? Was it timekeeper?
You have as long as.
Hey, that's dangerous. Kabar is too new. If I get it wrong again. If I get it wrong. Mine really is to welcome you. You've done all the work. You've documented your story. This is the beginning of it. So mine is to welcome you. And most importantly, thank you very much for being this afternoon with us.
And I want to thank you also for your good work and your engaging conversation. And I want to thank you for your follow-up remarks. And I also want to thank my team. And I'm going to ask if they can just take 1 minute and introduce themselves. The team that I work with, the team at the embassy.
Thank you, Ambassador. And my sister, the Chargée d'Affaires of the Embassy of the Republic of South Sudan. Brothers and sisters around, my name is Ambassador Katileve Tayebwa, and I deputize her in this mission. And I'm excited to hear about this book because as a young Ugandan, I had a good time with General Ali, and he told me stories from the days when he was a young paratrooper up to today when he's a general. So when he's writing, it's very good. And I want to make a small comment about Mzaiwan's issue of identity. Those of you who have been listening to President Museveni over the period, he's been talking about the two things, identity and interest. It's very important to keep the identity, the positive side of it. But where we are heading in issues of interest. What are our interests? Because our society is about what is happening in the world. Because now you are in America, being a Nubian, being a Muganda, being a Mcholi, what does it help you in America? But what is your interest in America? Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to observe. My name is Jenny Bakwega. I'm a counselor here. I'm really very happy to have you here as you launch this book. It's going to be a history in this embassy. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. All protocol observed. My name is George Devagana. I'm the first secretary in the embassy. I have the economic and commercial diplomacy. Yes. I'm happy to be part of this launching of this book. I hope I'll have a copy and read it and maybe ask further questions after reading it. Thank you.
Observed. Good evening. My name is Daniel Bill Higenyi. I'm the financial attaché at the embassy, and I've learned a lot from this book launch. I do hope I also have a copy and learn. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Philip Luzi. I'm in the Economic and Commercial Diplomacy Department. I'm very glad to hear a bit of the history of the Nubi community and how you all here. You all look really nice. Thank you so much for sharing us some of that history. Some of us don't know much about it and we'll be very interested to learn more. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chohi Ferdinand. I'm the immigration attaché here to the embassy. Maybe what I can point out in my work here, I normally do process passports, and the question of citizenship normally comes up. And the Nubi is one of the tribes, I would say, whom we know doesn't have clans. So I'm very happy to be part of this launch, and you're welcome once again.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Karen Kasibaya. I work as at the front desk in the other building and a consular assistant. I'd like to say thank you and welcome to everybody. And I'd also like to read the book and learn more.
My name is Jessica Magovan. I am the administrative attaché.
You all welcome and glad to be part of this with Hamza. We've been coordinating this. You are very much welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nam. Handyman technician at the mission, and my role is to make the place look as habitable for staff members and also the rest of you from the diaspora. I welcome all of you to the mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Allow me to also introduce a few people. It's a busy weekend. It's a busy week. It's been a blessed week as well. My mom and my uncle, my mom and her brother, my uncle and his wife were here a while ago, but they may have moved, so I didn't get a chance to introduce them to you. But it's a pleasure to have them around. They visited. I moved to America with her in 1977 because of the turmoil that was in Uganda. So we all know that history, the time that we have, we won't get into those details. I can also relate in terms of being in a country where you're trying to figure out who are you and how do you sustain that. And I'm sure we can have a lot to learn from your community in terms of existing within turmoil, within identity, because America itself has those other elements to it. I also allow me to introduce my good friend of 37 years, Victoria, from Arizona. And she's here because we also need to say congratulations to her son, who's graduating from Georgetown University. Is it tomorrow, Saturday? Ian. Hi, Ian. But more importantly, we also are privileged and blessed to have an elder with us. We have Victoria's mom, who lives in Kenya. So we've got generations. Hi.
I love you, Dr. She lives in Kibera, where we have a lot of Nubians and you are neighbors with Shikamon.
Yes. So you see, again, you're most welcome to the embassy. The doors are always open for you. Ferdinand, maybe you can, FK and Jolie, maybe you can get a sense of the community in terms of numbers, because that's another thing we struggle with when we say how many Ugandans are there, how many, so at some point maybe you can also, and we also have other functions. So sometimes we want to invite, to reach out, but we don't have a database. And we also know that there are historical things about giving your data out or people looking for you, it's voluntary, if you want to stay in touch with us, please feel free. If you feel for some reason or not, it's also okay, it's really up to you. Once again, I greatly appreciate this book, but not only the book, but the content of the book, but equally the process. And more importantly, that it was written by an elder. My background is in media. Books are media. I'm a graduate of Columbia's Graduate School of Journalism in New York City. So one of the things that took me to that school is to tell our story and to document our story. Because if you do not tell your story, you're simply going to remain a character in other people's stories. And for how long will you remain a character? These are the days where media is beyond books. These are the days where media is documentaries, is films, is all those things. You mentioned the challenge. My challenge for you is that within a year from now, it would be lovely to launch, a documentary on this book. And remember, we also have colleague ambassadors from the region. So it's an effort that we can collaborate with to launch this documentary. That way you wouldn't just have me in Uganda, but you also have the other colleague ambassadors. So I challenge, that's my challenge to you. That you're not welcome once, but you're welcome more than that. In terms of communication, I don't know if maybe you have a website for the book. Because these days
we are in that space, you know. So it would also be, I know, and also some of my people said, I want the book, I want the book. Yeah, but we all want some things, but we have to be willing to pay and support. So if you want the book, we have some people here who have the role of purchasing. So I don't know if we have a media budget or something, but at least a copy here and there, even if we have to share one copy. And I would like to confirm, I'd hate for my boss, His Excellency, not to have a copy, but maybe he already is. He has two copies. Okay, very good. So along those lines, again, it is so important to tell your story, because when you tell your story, it's the biggest gift that you can give. My connection with your community is through my husband, one of his best friends. They've been friends for 40 years. So that's how I got to know you. My husband is Kwame Riondo. His friend is Shafiq Kasim. I don't know if you know Shafiq. Yes, they have been friends. Even now, Shafiq is in Uganda. And like every other day when I'm calling, it's like, yeah, we're together, you know. So it's really, when you begin to know people for who they are, you discover that you have more in common than your differences, you know. So in terms of a community as well. And also the other thing is, you can tell a fruit by its tree, where it's come from. So Shafiq introduced me to a very good person, a very good fruit from your community. That's, there you go. So she has been so supportive, with so much love, with so much style, with so much everything, you know, so that I can only really say that it is an honor and a privilege to continue learning more about your community, coexisting, and just engaging, you know, because that's really my mandate, is to engage, to engage. The issue of citizenship, that is at least what I can say for government, in that we now have dual citizenship, you know. So if you haven't explored that opportunity, Jolie is there, FK is there, make that into a consideration also. So you're not just American, but you can also be Ugandan, you know. So in essence, don't feel stranded. You know, Uganda is your home, even when you're American. And we see other communities here. We see we see the Irish Americans, we see the Italian Americans, we see the Jewish Americans. There are many other communities who've been able to hold on to what they have, but also coexist and give back. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I really think that in closing, my closing remarks, unless there's something that you want me to address, but then I'll go on and on and on. But I think in my closing remarks, I can just say I have a deep appreciation for your commitment. You're definitely an example to follow. So when other members of the diaspora come in, I'll say, they have a book. Do you have one? You know? So you've set standards, and we like it. But also, where's the young lady? Yeah, thank you so much. You know, it's a gift that we will observe, and it's also, it's now my mind is spinning a bit, and I'm thinking, when George introduced himself, he also helps us with public affairs. I'm thinking, what documentation and what book do we have of the ambassadors who've been here? Maybe a book or a booklet or something. Maybe it's already compiled, you know. So so that we begin to document. And when you look at these other my colleague ambassadors who've been here, you'll see that there's a collection. There are women ambassadors. They come from different places in Uganda. So it would also be really it's something that we can think about in terms of documenting our own story in the embassy with the people that we're representing. I know it's Friday night, I know there's traffic, I know there's food, really good food. So I just want to say thank you once again. And please, you're always welcome. This is your home. If you weren't here, we would not have anybody to serve. So thank you. Thank you very much. If there's an invoice, don't be shy.
No, I don't think they're sending that. But we hope some people will buy the rest here.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay.
There are questions online where they can buy the books.
We'll share a link.
Thank you.
Where to buy it.
Okay.
Please, before you leave, have something. Please feel free to go to the next room and have something to eat.
$30.
Before the
Yes. You people. That's right. I came from Uganda yesterday.
You stay here to pick them.
I made sure.
The answer is, you meant to say your impression after the... No, I'll hold it. I'll hold it for you. Put this side. Okay, good.
What an honor and a privilege it is to be part of the launch of this book, to learn more about the history of this community, but also to honor the president, but also to honor the ambassador who are part of this community and received the lovely profile of him and portrait of his granddaughter. So his legacy is
So what's your message to all Ugandans in the U.S. now?
My message is, first of all, thank you for your efforts in terms of keeping your culture. And then the challenge is to see how we can begin to engage and keep art history in Uganda, although we're in different places within the country, especially the language. You know, our language, our food, our music, that's what makes our culture and our people to engage.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you. I'll give you my card in case you need money. I can come and cover. I'm based here in Silver Spring. I've been covering all the events in the DC area, most of the embassies. Yeah, I cover event there. And,
great to know.
Yes, you're welcome. All right.
The lady, when she was speaking, it was not audible, so I can ask her to say something again.
Okay.
No, don't worry. It's all
You have a card?
Oh, sure.
Call me, okay? Don't just take it.
Ah, I have to tuck it in here. You say don't put it here because when you always take and pull out.
Oh.
He's right here, the person who when I was the other day.
Just to disturb you. But it's okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I would rather specifically be asked a question.
Okay, the question about the connection. What you just pretty much spoke about the connection, Sudanese and Nubi and yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you can stand this way.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rest is nice and that light is very disconcerting.
Yeah, sorry.
That's
Don't,
okay.
don't look down here.
Just look down here.
Yes.
Okay. Help me whenever you're ready.
I'll hold it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So after the events, as you spoken at the beginning, you hear the story about the books, you give a speech, and now you are about to go home. What is your thought about this special lunch?
This launch has been very special because it gives us the origin story. And it's very important because our history has always been told to us by colonizers. And this history is a recording of the origin. And the fact that they are from Sudan, and now they're in Southern Sudan, and these are ethnic groups that were collected along the way and settled in Uganda, in Kenya, and even other places that we're probably not very So this book launch has actually made us to expand our knowledge, but even raise more questions about us tracing the whole from Sudan all the way to Uganda to Kenya, and the struggles and the resilience of people.
Thank you. Do you have your card?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
I'll be coming to your embassy. I'll call you.
No problem.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, yes.
Have somebody say something?
These two gentlemen would like to say something.
Of course, that's what I'm going to do.
I think we're good with that. Karim. I will try to. My message was not for me.
I think the message was for you. Okay.
I will give it to you in email, and then my assistant will, and it sounds a bit, but it's just so that we get the calendar. So,
I think we have a lot of activities that we do.
Okay.
Especially now.
Yes, so you just speak from the heart. It was very nice chatting from the
Your Excellency, my name is Kaunde. I'm from Uganda. I'm the Vice President of the African Catholics in this area. We are celebrating the whole sex of plan every year, the national fashion. I would like to say that to your embassy, yourself and the embassy, if you have a Catholics from South Sudan.
My son goes to Catholic church. He just had his first communion 4 weeks ago.
It's a season.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah, I think I make sure I have my card.
And if you know any other
Super nice.
I'm good. I'm coming up.
Well, I was supposed to meet you this way. Still all good. Yeah, but I'm still good. We have a lot
That is our event group. Yes, accepted where they are. And then you have to find a group. So that's don't forget the go and put
Okay.
Where you are sort of in a defensive posture. Yeah. Totally unprepared. Totally unprepared. So before you, when you wake up, you realize.
Okay. We were early 90s, we were struggling with economic structural adjustment programs from the IMF. Yeah, but that's when they were introduced. Oh yeah. Even before 1980, science always
So thank you guys for watching. We are about to stop the live now. The event is finished. As you can see, we are doing the eating part now. So thank you for watching. We will see you next time.
If you look into 90s, even in the 80s, there was a division in the Zimbabwe cabinet. So you had people who were pragmatists.